Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have X-Men First Class. This is kind of the reboot of the original X-Men 20th Century Fox X-Men series, well before Disney ever acquired it. This is from 2011. It's 2 hours and 12 minutes long, and it gives us a whole new cast. We may have known Professor Xavier, Patrick Stewart playing him, and Ian McKellen playing Magneto, but in this case we get James McAvoy as Professor X and Michael Fassbender as Magneto, much younger, much more youthful, and also different people at this point. There's so much to talk about this, especially in a person who knows comics and knows the X-Men really well. There's so many different things. There's so many things similar, and there's so many things that are so not part of the comic or not done in the same way as the comic. Characters arrive in the earliest era at a time when, well, we don't see them in the comic. And that's okay. Most people have not read the comics and don't care. So I can't talk about this without being spoilerish. So be aware that if you haven't watched this film, I'm going to be spoiling some stuff. Just because, again, I cannot talk about this. It's not a new film. If this was a brand new film that was being released this week, I wouldn't spoil anything. But so if you got a problem with spoilers, just stop watching. Shouldn't be too hard. Just stop watching, and come back afterwards and just listen to me babble on about this film. That's what I do. So we get the origins of the X-Men. We get to see how Magneto and Professor X met and how they fell in love. Well, not really, but they were best friends. Without an erotic element, it is almost a romance. Because they truly cared for each other, and they truly believed that they could do something, build something for mutant kind. And yeah. And while they struggle at times to fight back their accents, Fassbender just has a little bit of an Irish lilt that sneaks in there every once in a while. McAvoy handles it adeptly. He's a Scotsman, so for him to do an English accent, it's, I guess, on the same island. Isn't too bad. But yeah, that's not even the biggest deal. Of course, people who read the comics would go, oh my gosh, this is nothing like that. Don't worry about it. Once we start these films, this range of films starring these characters and these actors, each film is from a different decade. This takes place in the 60s. This film also starts in the 1940s during World War II in the camp in Auschwitz where Magneto was first born, in a sense. Eric being separated from his family and being traumatized as the Nazis hold him back. He uses his powers for the first time to bend the steel gates as he tries to claw his way to his parents, not knowing their fate, not knowing what their fate may be. And we get to see, that's actually the start of the first X-Men film in 2000, and they recreated it. At times I'm like, is this the same thing? But no, I think they fully recreated it because the actor they use in this new version has to do more scenes later because we get to see what happened after that moment. And what led Eric, Magneto, led Eric to be the man he is. The man filled with vengeance and filled with hate for the people who murdered his family and nearly murdered him and murdered millions more just for who they were. And that's kind of the foundation for so much of what the X-Men is. It's how we handle it, how we deal with it. And Magneto has one way, which is much more militant, much less forgiving, and just says, hey, you know what? I don't care if you're doing your job. you get what you gave. And Professor X, who did not experience that, seeks, once he realizes that there are so many more mutants than him, that they got to do something to work together, that no matter how different they may be, they need to work for the betterment of humanity and for Homo superior, Homo sapiens altogether, even if one seems to be on the path to replacing the other. And that's where, even though these two men are best friends and care for each other and want the best for mutant kind, they have two very different ways of going about it. Again, reflecting in the civil rights movement, Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King Jr. So it's that's the very surface level stuff and stuff that so many X-Men fans already know. That's I'm not telling you anything you don't know if you're already a comic book nerd. But yeah, we get this fantastic cast. We get Jennifer Lawrence, a very young Jennifer Lawrence, right off of her Hunger Games premiere. I like, honestly, I think the moment Hunger Games started and they saw what she was doing, they pulled her into this and just went, please join our X-Men. You can be a younger blonde Rebecca Romaine, and because we need a younger version of Mystique. And well, Mystique technically doesn't age, but still, they weren't gonna bring in Rebecca Romaine, just like they weren't gonna bring in Patrick Stewart. That stuff all happens later when they have the Days of Future Past storyline, where the two eras of characters sort of work in the same film. So all good with that, but Jennifer Lawrence is in this. We get to see that she had a connection. Mystique had a connection with Charles Xavier from a very young age. Definitely not in the comics. We get to see the early X-Men, of which only Beast is around. Although in this case also there is a Alex Summers, which is Havoc. We have, if you know the comics, Havoc is technically the brother of Scott Summers, Cyclops. But Cyclops, when he joins the X-Men, is around like the late 70s or 80s. So can they really be brothers? It's never addressed. Nobody cares. It doesn't impact the story whatsoever. And very often, I think from film to film, some of these characters kind of get cycled out. Even though I think Matthew Vaughn, for the most part, has been involved in directing these. He also did Kingsman and Kick-Ass and things like that. He's been pretty much brought in to do a bunch of Mark Millar comic books and putting them to film. And in this case, he got to do some X-Men stuff, and in lieu of Brett Ratner. I don't think he was going to be called back anytime soon, but also in lieu of Bryan Singer continuing his work directly in the franchise for various reasons. He does return eventually to do later films, but yeah. This let's just say the X-Men Overture doesn't end well, and honestly, I think we have just one more of those to watch. Yeah. So that'll get picked eventually. It's sometime this year, it'll get picked. So we get a big cast of interesting characters. There's Zoe Kravitz is in this. She plays Angel, which is honestly a new X-Men era character who also isn't as attractive as Zoe Saldana is in this film. She's kind of an outcast, an outcast in a different way in the comics. And but every woman in this, though, is really weirdly objectified. This is really strange. I'm not only I'm realizing it for the first time, but the first time I'm verbalizing it. When Charles and Eric go about trying to recruit new mutants to be trained to join their group, they find Angel, not Warren Worthington III. They find Angel in basically a strip club. Prior to that, earlier in the film, we meet Emma Frost for the first time, played by January Jones. Barely. I like Emma Frost. Emma Frost has a humongous presence in the comics. Jumps off the page, and not just because she's gorgeous and very often in revealing outfits, And January Jones certainly in plenty of revealing outfits. And it's not that she's not a talented actress. You know her from Mad Men, but I think she felt like she was. It felt like she was sleepwalking through this film. To me, there could have been a billion other women, but again, she's pushing the boobs up, and they're trying to make her sexy, and she's just sort of, here's my line. I'm going to speak my line. Here's my line. I don't know why. I don't know why. I think somebody just convinced her to do it, whether she wanted to or not, and just like, thank you for the paycheck. It's frustrating when that happens. And I don't know. I don't think I'm the only one. But her depiction when we first see her, Emma Frost is just gorgeous in the first place, and she has no fear of her sexuality. But then also we get Moira McTaggart, who's working for the CIA, who's not at all Irish in this. She's an American woman, played by Rose Byrne, who is English. All over the place. In order for her to sneak into the Hellfire Club, along with a bunch of other women who only dress in lingerie, she's on a stakeout. She just rips off her clothes in the car and walks. She just happens to have this full-on lingerie outfit ready to go. Maybe that's the way it was in the 60s, where women just, hey, you know what, I'm at work, but let me just put on some amazing lingerie. Just so I feel good. Feel sexy. I don't know. she sneaks in the Hellfire Club in that outfit. And then, okay, so we got Raven, Mystique, we get Emma, we get Moira, and I'm probably missing one. Obviously, even from the beginning, Jennifer's going to be blue and naked for the most part in whatever scenes they can get. She's not, at the beginning though, when we first see her, she is human looking, and she is dressed, and when as a child she is blue and pretty much naked when Charles first meets her. Problematic. But then, there's also, like, when she's an adult, the expression of her freedom as a mutant is to eschew clothing and any kind of human Jennifer Lawrence looking face. So again, when Professor Xavier first sees her when she's in her coming out phase, it startles him because he's like, why are you naked, basically, in the kitchen? What's going on? So yeah, it's every single moment with one of the women between, Angel, Mystique, Emma, and man, they really, either they were looking to make sure there was enough footage of that to put in the trailers to make all the boys go, oh, I need to go see that. I don't know. There's marketing, and I like this film, but there's some things that are just a little icky, as lovely as these women are, and I don't have a problem looking at them because they are gorgeous. So, but I think there should be a little bit more to it than that. So yeah, we get each of these actors in this. Did I say Nicholas Hoult as the Beast? He's a guy who's also struggling with his body issues and being who he is. We get answers as to why is the Beast blue? Why is everybody blue? And Mystique's blue, eventually Nightcrawler's blue, and if you're going to connect those from the comics, just don't. They ignored any connections between Mystique and Nightcrawler in the movies, and that's how it should be. They might rectify all of that. And by the way, Raven, Mystique, is gay in the comics. She has a wife, and has had a wife for a very long time, before it was ever legal anywhere. That's another whole story you can find in the comics. She's a gay icon. Her and her wife, icons. But they're the villains. So if you're looking for a nice I'd still say if you want to start with the X-Men films, you should have to start with the original one in 2000, and then you'll understand stuff as once you hit this era after 3 films, and a Wolverine here or there, Origins. You'll eventually move through these films, and while they are great, and I love the X-Men, and I love the people who make it, and the actors who appear in it, and yes, by the way, there's a Hugh Jackman cameo, of course. Very short. It's all for us. It doesn't serve any purpose of the story whatsoever. There's also no mid or end credit sequence, so don't worry about that once the story ends. But yeah, there's so much good about this. But as the Marvel Cinematic Universe was building on its own with Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America leading into the Avengers, these guys making these films, I think, were like, oh, we can put people in colorful costumes, and people will not see this as weird or embarrassing or made for children. And so that shift was slowly happening, and it's this balancing act. You can see even in this image right here. Are they going to wear black leather outfits like in the original X-Men film, or are they going to bring in the yellow and blue colors? This is sort of a middle of the road choice right here. So they're dealing with changes visually, character wise, still apparently struggling with women and how to depict women, and it just there's lots to be seen and said and appreciated in these films. They are not perfect whatsoever, no matter where you're coming from, whether you're a big comic book X-Men fan, or you're just coming out from nowhere and going, what are these X-Men things all about? Because it might become important at some point once the X-Men fully and officially join the MCU in the years to come. How they enter fully into the world, don't know. I have a feeling it's not going to be the way we expect, and don't expect them to connect directly to any of this. But this might be a neat nostalgia trip to understand who these characters are, because at their core, they don't overly change anything about these characters. Oh God, there's so much I could go through. One of the things I actually like about this, that I wish they had a spin-off of, Magneto, Nazi Hunter. Oh, there's a whole sequence in this where we see as the years had passed since 1944. And the paths were, one side, we have Professor Xavier, who is the ethical leader of the X-Men. In his young days, he just used his telepathy, his mind reading, his ability to see into people's minds to pick up girls. Honestly, he just used it to pick up hotties at the pub, and yeah, he was using it irresponsibly. And at the same time, Magneto was using his powers as responsibly as he could by taking vengeance on those who had been responsible and escaped judgment, escaped justice after World War II for the acts of the Nazis during the Holocaust. And you get to see a number of sequences where he gives some people their comeuppance, going all the way down to South America, and just taking out some Nazis. It's a beautiful thing. And Fassbender is just really good. Irish lilt sneaking in there or not, he's just really good at looking like a menacing figure. I'm sure he's a lovely man, but he is when he's Magneto, and not even in a costume. There's no helmet, there's no cape, there's no mutants, blah. And he's just, you Nazis, time to die now. Basically, I would have watched 2 hours of a trilogy of those films of him just hunting down Nazis. Marvel Comics, I realize it's a little late. It's a good 14 years later, but you could make that comic, and I will write it for you if you want. Oh my God, I would love to write that. Let me write a Magneto Nazi Hunter book, and I think we could have lots of fun with that. So yeah, there's so much possibilities in this, and it's starting from ground zero with the X-Men. It has so many, just between the war between humanity and the mutants and the people manipulating the humans into a potential war, tying it to the Bay of Pigs and Cuban Missile Crisis and all these things. It's neat to see these things mixed with history, and that it'll continue throughout each era of each of these films, because the next one takes place in the 70s, and the next one in the 80s, and then the 90s, and so it keeps going on. Then they go Back to the Future. So there's all sorts of different things going on in there. For me, it's good fun to watch these, and for having not watched it, it feels like 10 years. Probably not, but it feels like it's been 10 years since I watched this. I see it through new eyes, and I've seen it a lot, by the way. Back when it was in theaters, I probably saw it at least 3-4 times, just because I love the X-Men. and it seems like anytime anybody wanted to go see that movie with a different group of friends, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm fine with that. So yeah, big geek with the X-Men. Yeah, I know there's a ton more stories and things to say about this. The fact that a friend of mine has a problem with the fact that Darwin, which is a favorite character of his, was, and again, spoilers, killed off so quickly and easily, but I now, seeing this, realize that he's such a powerful character that he's a deus ex machina kind of character, which could solve a lot of problems. If he was still around later in the film, he would have made not a challenge. Like, let's introduce him, and then we have to kill him off, because he cannot be a problem. We cannot bring him into later stories either. He has to be killed. Otherwise, the movie's going to be 10 minutes long. I mean, honestly, Magneto and Professor Xavier, technically, without restraints, any story would last 5 minutes, because they are extremely powerful. But yeah, it's there's honestly, I could go on for 2 more hours, but you haven't even watched to this point, so I enjoy talking to myself. Let's pick tomorrow's episode, and I can talk to you tomorrow about something different. 94. There we go. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Been waiting for this for a while. I mean, I've seen it in theaters, but it's a movie. And wait, am I looking at the right tab? Yeah, I have to be. Yes, yeah, okay. Because there's some stuff on here I didn't think were on the list yet, but they are. I'll talk about that later. We're almost at the end of the month, end of the quarter, and soon I'm going to be rebooting this list with less than 200 items to go. It's amazing, but I'll talk about that later. This video's gone long enough. Tomorrow we're going to be watching Incredibles 2. 2 superhero movies back to back. And this one, very much in the Brad Bird Pixar mold. And hey, Incredibles 3 is on the way soon, sometime. I don't recall. Maybe next year. I think it's next year. We'll find out. Incredibles 2 is what we're watching next on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.